Welcome to the national price of perversion. In the last two incidents in the book of the Judges, it is dealing with the Levites and what the Levites are doing, the attitude of the Levites at this time. We see all through the book of the Judges, the Levites are basically absent. It is judges and prophets who are from different tribes, but the tribe of Levi, which is supposed to be the tribe that is selected to not only be the teachers, but also the judges, the physicians, those who are there to serve the nation of Israel, every one of the tribes, and that is why they have a very special relationship with the Almighty that is detailed in the 18th chapter of Deuteronomy. We find that in this first of the last two incidents, we have paid professional false prophets, Yohanan, who is a Levite, who is in it for the money. He will serve other gods. He will be a priest for a house of gods of Micah. And then when the money is raised and he has an opportunity to advance himself, he goes up with the tribe of Dan. They take over Laish, they burn it to the ground, and then he is made the priest of the tribe of Dan. They name the city then Dan. The city of Dan is still there. The archaeological remains, it is really one of the garden spots on the planet and absolutely beautiful. As a matter of fact, the spring waters that are coming out of the base of the Mount Hermon, which form the Dan River, it's so ice cold, it is ideal for trout. And so they have trout farms along the way. The trout escape, and we actually go fly fishing on the Dan River, in Israel, when trout are not even native there. And it is just a gorgeous spot to be in such a relaxing place. And one of my favorite places in the land of Israel. It's about 30 miles from my house up on the Sea of Galilee. So this is an area that I love, and I can understand why Dan went up there and conquered the people of Laish and took over this area. But it was there at Laish, which became known as Dan, that Yohanan and his sons and his sons' sons, it says that they were the priests for the tribe of Dan until the day of the captivity of the land. Now we're going to go through all of the period of the kings, first and second kings, which first and second Samuel are the first and second book of the kings. Kings 2 and 3 in your King James is also called the third and fourth book of the kings. And it's in the very end of the book of Kings that this is what it's talking about. They were the priests in there, the paid professional false prophets who would sell themselves out for a buck. Those are the Levites who are in Dan until they're destroyed. Now, we ended our last segment with Shalmaneser coming in, and this is during the reign of Hoshea. Shalmaneser, the king of Assyria, came in and he carried away Israel. It says in chapter 2 Kings, chapter 17, and in verse 6, that it was the 9th year of Hoshea, who was in captivity at this point, that the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried away Israel into Assyria and placed them in the land of the Medes, into what is now Assyria, Iran, and Iraq. He scattered them all over and took those people and brought them back in to inhabit the land that Israel was taken from. And so this is what becomes known as the 10 lost tribes of the house of Israel. The house of Judah and the house of Israel were split, and this very section is going to tell us about that split that happened in the days of Solomon's son, Rehoboam, or Rehoboam in your King James, and Jeroboam, who then separated the 10 northern tribes and took them immediately into paganism. It was Jeroboam, in fact, that set up golden calves at Bethel and at Dan. They were primed for it. And he said, "These be thy gods, O Israel, which brought you out of the land of Egypt." And it's because Israel went into this gross sin, gross immorality, and the worship of other gods that they actually were taken into captivity. And it tells us that in verse 7, so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against Jehovah, which brought them up out of the land of Egypt. And they walked, in verse 8, after the way of the heathen. And verse 9, the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right in the sight of Yahovah, their Elohim. They built high places. They set themselves up images and groves under every tree and on every high hill. They put phallic symbols. They did as the heathen did. They served idols. And it continues on. I'm going through this very quickly before we pick up the main body of it. And then verse 13, yet the Lord testified, Yahovah testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets and by all the seers, telling them to turn away from their evil ways. Keep my commandments and my statutes. Keep all of my Torah, which I commanded your fathers. And the very same thing that I spoke to them by all the prophets. Notwithstanding, they would not hear, they would not believe in Yahovah, but they followed vanity, and they became like the heathen did. They left, in verse 16, they left all of the commandments of Yahovah. They made molten images, and two calves, and a grove, and worshiped the host of heaven, and served Baalim. They caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire. They used divination, enchantments, contacting demonic spirits, familiar spirits, to get information from them. They sold themselves to do evil and to provoke Yahovah to anger. That is why it says in verse 18 that Yahovah was angry with them. He moved them out of his sight, and there was none left except the tribe of Judah only. Israel was taken away captive into other nations. Even to this day, before the sun rises every morning, the Orthodox are down at the wall and they are praying in their morning prayers before sunrise. They're praying for the return of the lost sheep of the house of Israel, the 10 lost tribes. They have been gone. And it says right there in verse 18, there was none left except the tribe of Judah only. So Judah is still praying for the return of Israel. And according to many Orthodox, they believe that Israel is scattered not only in that area, but then ended up being scattered all over the world, and that a lot of the people that call themselves Christians are probably of the lost sheep of the house of Israel. You know, there's no way to prove it. They didn't look like Israel when they were thrown out of the land. They had gone into pagan sun worship. And if you take a look at the same pagan sun worship they were thrown out of the land for, this is part and parcel of Christianity today, unfortunately. The abominations of the heathen that got Israel thrown out of the land are the same abominations of the heathen that have become embedded in the Christian church through Rome. And then it says, but all that was left was the tribe of Judah. But it says, Judah did not keep the commandments of Yahovah. It tells us in verse 19 and following, they walked in the statutes of Israel, which they made. And Yahovah rejected all the seed of Israel, afflicted them, and delivered them in the hands of spoilers until he had cast them out of his sight. And then verse 21 says that, going back in history, it says he rent Israel from the house of David, the 10 northern tribes. And they made Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, their king. And Jeroboam was one who drove Israel from following Yahovah. They made them sin a great sin because the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam, which he did, and then they departed from Yahovah. And so he departed from them. He removed them out of his sight, just as he swore by his servants, the prophets, and that is exactly why Israel was carried away out of their land into Assyria. And there they are unto this day. Now, of course, Assyria, from Assyria and the Assyrian Empire, then they went out from there. But it's staying, even to that day, they're carried away. And there's been no return as far as the majority of the house of Israel. And it doesn't take a great math genius to figure this out. India, China, and Israel are all about the same age. Neither India nor China have been taken captive and forced out of their land. But both Israel, the northern 10 tribes, and Judah were taken out of their land. Even when Judah came back in and rebuilt the temple, Zerubbabel's temple, it's still recognized that most of the Jews never came back from Babylon. Most of the Torah scrolls, ancient Torah scrolls that we have today in Israel are from Babylon, because that's where most of the Jews were until Israel became a nation again in a day, 1948, May 15th, 1948, which is the 7th Sabbath of the county of the Omer. That is when Israel became a nation one day, and that is when the return of Judah out of this area happened and began in mass. But Israel has been gone longer, my goodness, and still not returned for the most part. But once they were carried away into Assyria and went out from there, Judah went out, Israel never came back in. Oh yeah, there were a few that were in the north and they migrated down into the south. You've got some of the tribes that end up down there as far as individuals, but not the tribes, not the entire families. The entire families were taken out of the land. All you've got is a few stragglers, a few people that escape, a few people that get through the siege walls and around the Assyrian army that are able to get out and head down south and become part of Judea, okay? But for the most part, the 10 northern tribes have been gone and are gone still to this day. In verse 24, now we get some real history, ladies and gentlemen. The king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, from Kutah, from Avah, from Hamath, and from the Sepharvaim, and they placed them in the cities of Samaria. Samaria is the capital of northern Israel. And he placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. And so it was at the beginning of their dwelling there that they feared not Jehovah. They didn't know anything about him. Why? They're all pagans that were brought in. Therefore, Jehovah sent lions among them and slew some of them. That is why they spoke to the king of Assyria, Shalmaneser, saying, the nations which you have removed and placed removed from their homeland and placed in the cities of Samaria, we do not know the manner of the God of the land. That is why he sent lions among us and they're killing us, because we don't know the manner of the God of the land. And so, we brought our own gods with us, but, it doesn't seem to help. We seem to be out of synchronization with the God of the land. And so the king of Assyria commanded that they carry one of the priests that they had taken out of Israel and then have them come back in to Israel and teach these pagans the manner of the God of the land. Then one of the priests whom they had carried away from Samaria came and dwelt in Bethel and taught them how they should fear Jehovah. Wait just a minute here. Who is this priest? They're not Levites. See, in Dan, they had crooked priests, paid professional false prophets from the tribe of Levi. But this is not what Jeroboam did. No. Jeroboam took the lowest of the people who were not even Levites, and he made them the priest of this new religious system that he developed. Such as, instead of keeping a feast in the 7th month, the Feast of Sukkot, he had a feast like the Feast of Sukkot, but he did it in the 8th month. He changed all the feasts of the Lord. The people were no longer keeping the Sabbath. They finally went into complete idolatry, worshiping pagan gods. They were worshiping on Sunday when the sun god of Babylon was worshipped. Nimrod reincarnated as little baby Tammuz on December 25th. All of the accoutrements of Babylonian sun worship, that was part and parcel of their life. And these priests, now Levites, priests, got the people thrown out of the land. Now, these are the priests. This is the priest that's going to come back and teach the people how they should fear Jehovah. Oh, good luck on that one. And then it says, howbeit, every nation made gods of their own. They put them in their own places of worship and their own high places. And every nation that was brought from their own nations and brought into the land of Israel, they brought their own gods with them. In verse 30, it says, the men of Babylon made Sukkot Benot, and the men of Cuth made Nergal, and the men of Hamath made Ashima, and the Arvites made Nibhaz and Tartak. And the Sepharvites burnt their children in fire to Adramelech and Anamelech, the gods of the Sepharvaim. So they feared the Lord and made unto themselves the lowest of the priestly high places, which sacrificed for them in the high places. They feared Yahovah, but yet they served their own gods. So feared Yahovah, what does that mean? Secretly, they said this is the God of the land that we are now worshiping, but they were not worshiping the true God. They were worshiping the gods of their own choosing. So we continue on, verse 33. So, unto this day, in verse 34, they do after the former manners. It says they fear not the Lord. Now they say they fear Yahovah, but they don't really honor, respect, and obey him. So they say this, but they still do what they've always done. They still worship pagan gods like they did in their cities of their ancestry before they were brought to Israel. When they got to Israel, they were taught about the God of the land, but the twisted God of the land according to these paid priests that Jeroboam set up originally. And so now it says that even though they say they fear Yahovah, it says they fear not Yahovah. They really don't. Neither do they follow after his statutes, ordinances, or the Torah and the commandments that Yahovah commanded of the children of Jacob, Israel. He is the one that made a covenant and charged Israel. And this is what he said. You shall not respect other gods. You shall not bow yourselves down to them. You shall not serve them. You shall not sacrifice to them. But Yahovah, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt with great power and an outstretched arm, him you shall fear, him you shall worship, and to him you shall do sacrifices. And the statutes and the ordinances and the Torah and the commandments which he wrote to you, you shall observe to do forever, and you shall never, ever respect any other gods. And the covenant that I've made with you, you shall not forget, you shall never respect their other gods. But Yahovah, him you shall fear. And he will deliver you out of the hand of the enemies. And this is what he told them. This is what he over and over and over. All of the Torah, all through Joshua, all through the judges, how many times you have to be told this? Then all the prophets that spoke during the reign of all the kings, but they would not listen. They did after their former manner. So, now we get to the so, because all this is talking about what Israel did, to get Israel thrown out of the land. Now we've got all these pagans coming into the land, and they are not fearing Yahovah. So, these nations that came in feared Yahovah and served their graven images, both their children and their children's children, as did their fathers. So do they to this day. They say they follow him, but they don't do what he says to do. I know this King James English is a little bit difficult in here, but you have to understand that you can say you serve the true God. Oh, I just love Jesus. People say. But they don't listen to him. They don't do anything that he says to do. They get a t-shirt that says WWJD and they think, well, what would Jesus do? And they make up some kind of nonsense. What did Yeshua do? He found the place where it was written. He said what was written, and he did what was written. It's not a big mystery, people. Well, let's go back. Let's go back to Judges, because now we're going to pick it up. It came to pass in those days, chapter 19, that there was no king in Israel. And we, of course, know what it's all about now, because everyone's going to do whatever they think is right. And there was a certain Levite that was sojourning on the side of Mount Ephraim. This isn't the same one, it's another Levite. He took to him a concubine out of Bethlehem, Judah, and his concubine, it says, played the whore against him and went from him and returned to her father's house and was there for 4 whole months. Now, to play the whore in this particular thing is not to be a prostitute. That is a death penalty for an Israelite. But to play the whore and go back to her father's house meant she wanted to go back under her father's covering, because she was under her husband and was to submit to him. So to not submit to your husband is playing the whore. And this girl went back to her father's house. She played the whore, even though she was not a female prostitute. She played the whore, in other words, not submitting to her husband. And that's your biblical definition of playing the whore. And that's why, you know, in the Brit Hadashah, in the New Testament, it speaks of this over and over about women submitting to their husband, that their husband is their head. The head of the man is Messiah. The head of the Messiah is Yahovah, Elohim Almighty. Okay, there's an order here. But there's apparently something wrong in the relationship that we're going to pick up on a little later. And I think that, you know, his attitude toward her, first of all, this is his secondary consort. It's not his wife. His wife, we don't know how many wives he has, but this is a concubine and not a wife, which is in a different category here. And so now that she's been down there for 4 months, her husband then went down, and he wanted to speak friendly to her, the story goes, and to bring her back. And so he took his servant with him and took a couple of asses, and they came down and went into her father's house. And when the father of the girl saw him, he was very happy to see him. And his father-in-law, his concubine, you know, the Levite's concubine's father, retained him, and he abode with him for 3 days. So he ate with him, he drank with him, he lodged there, and it came to pass on the 4th day, he rose up early in the morning, got ready to go, and his father-in-law said, come on, let's have something to eat before you go. And so they sat down, they drank, they ate, they had a good time. It was too late to go. And so then the next morning, he got up again. And then he said, oh, before you go, let's have some dinner, let's have some wine, let's make ourselves merry, and boom, again. Didn't go, slept the night. The next day, they got up and he said, have a bite to eat before you go, have a little bit of wine, and did it. And then finally, at the end of the day, he said, I have got to get out of here. And so he left. He left. They packed up and left, and then they are going by Jevis. It's Jerusalem, but the Jebusites live there. It's where the pagans are living there. And so they said, we're not going to stop here. I know the sun is going to set. I know that they are not going to welcome us in this city. Let's keep on going. And so what happens is that they come, let me find it here, right here. We'll pass over to Gibeah. In verse 13, he said to his servants, come, let's go over to one of these places to lodge at night in Gibeah, in Ramah. And so they went on over to Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin. And when they went into Gibeah to lodge there, he sat down in the street of the city, and because they were looking for someone to welcome them into their house so they would have lodging. And no one did. But then an old man came out from the field in the evening, And he was also from Mount Ephraim, originally from Mount Ephraim. And so, you know, the Levite has been up there in Mount Ephraim, and so he said, come on in to the Levite. And so when he came into the lodging, it says that he gave the background of why he was up there, that in verse 18, it says, we are passing from Bethlehem, Judah, toward the side of Mount Ephraim, and so we are going to go up to the house of Yahovah, and there's no man to receive us. And so now, yeah, we're going to the house of Yahovah. He's really fetched his wife. They're going back home. And so the man said, I have enough straw and provision for your asses, and I've got bread and wine for you, for your servant, and also for your handmaid, for your concubine. There's nothing that we want. Said, come on, peace, come on, peace, shalom, come on in. Everything that you want, I can take care of. You're going to need nothing. And so he brought the man into his house, and he fed his asses, and now everything seems to be fine. In verse 22, now as they were making their hearts merry, they got wine, they got food, behold, the men of the city, certain sons of Belial, beset the house round about. They circled the house, and they beat on the door, and they spoke to the master of the house, the old man, and said, bring forth that man that came into your house, so we may know him. Now, when he says that we may know him, we're not talking about the same that we may know him as in Joseph knew his wife and brought, no, this is a different situation. And before we go into it and find out what the price of this perversion is going to cost the nation of Israel, we're going to take just a quick break, as we do each week. Those of you who are watching for the first time, now you will know that this is when we give you the opportunity to participate in this ministry. The reason that we are on in more than 160 countries of the world, that you're watching us on the internet or by television, whatever, is because there have been others whose lives have been touched in the past, and they have stood with me so that I could get to you and to bring the gospel of the kingdom to you. Because everything that I'm doing, everything I'm teaching, I'm giving you the background to the Gospels. I'm giving you the background so that you can understand what Yeshua was saying in the context of Israel. Yeshua did not come down out of the sky in the middle, just out of the blue. No, he came into a culture that had been in place for thousands of years. And he is correcting things that are wrong and teaching us how to walk out the instructions in the Torah, the same instructions that these people had walked away from. So now you have the opportunity, just like those in the past have, you have the opportunity to help me to reach out to others and to stay on these networks and to stay in this venue. And so I'm asking you to stand with us, be a part of this ministry, be a member of the Ambassador Club, $100 or more a month. Stand with us so we can make our commitments and stay on the air. We'll give you just a few moments here. The Levite, his concubine, his servant, were all in the home of this old man that was originally from Mount Ephraim, who's now living in Gibeah. They are eating and drinking, they're having a good time, and then it says that there were men of that city, and these are Benjamites, certain sons of Belial, sons of Satan is another way of saying this, and this is only to those who are the ultimate in depravity, unredeemable, who have gone so far down that there is no hope for. That's when the sons of Belial is used. It says they beset the house round about. They beat on the door. They yelled at the master of the house, the old man, and says, bring forth the men that came into this house so that we may rape them. This is what happens when you have large number of sex perverts all together. Oh, they march and they say they want equal rights and all this. No, when people will do this to people, when you have, in one denomination out there, one religious system, in one area out in California, out of one seminary in that area, they have 5,000 registered pedophiles. This is the ultimate in debauchery, and these are priests of a particular religious system. 5,000 registered pedophiles. I'll tell you, that is one, well, what do you say? House of debauchery. Yeah, it's religion, all right, religion. These are sons of Belial, a whole group of them, and this is what's going on right there. And they will probably take them, rape them, and then kill them. That's commonly what is done. And so the master of the house, it says, he went out and he said, no, do not do this wicked thing. These people have come unto my house, they're under my protection, do not do this foolish thing. Look, here's my daughter, she's a virgin, and his concubine. We'll bring them out to you. Do with them what you want. But don't do to these men such a vile thing. Now, in one way, I think this is like Lot speaking to the sex perverts there at the city of Sodom. And he said, you take my daughters, expecting that, no, they don't want the daughters. They're not into normal stuff at all. No, these guys are into the vilest, most gross. I mean, as Shaul, Paul says, it's a shame to even speak of the things that they do. I mean, if we just pause for a moment of silence just to think what these people do, that would be a dishonor to even think for a second of what these vile people do. Oh, well, you might want to call it alternative lifestyle, but I don't call that kind of debauchery alternative. The Creator created the heavens and the earth, and he said there are some things that are just outside of the bounds of human decency you don't do. This is one of them, ladies and gentlemen. Well, there's probably about 20 of them right here. But it says that the men wouldn't listen to him. So the man took his concubine and threw her out the door. And they abused her all night until the morning, and when the day began to break, they let her go. The woman came back to the house, found the door, and then fell down at the door. When her Lord rose up in the morning and opened the doors of the house to go his way, it says that this woman, his concubine, her hands were on the threshold of the door, and he said, get up, let's go. But she didn't answer. She's dead. Now, this is really hard to imagine. But obviously, this is giving us an idea why she played the whore and went back to her father's house. See, the second wife is in Hebrew is called the vexer. And if a man has one wife, and of course in the scripture in the land of Israel back then, not so today, but back then it was lawful to have more than one wife. We see that Gideon had many wives, and then he had a concubine as well as many wives. That was in the land of Israel then. It's illegal today. Now, if you're a Jew, you come from Morocco or some other Eastern country, and you have several wives, when you come to Israel, make aliyah, you still have to take care of them. They're your wives, but you can't have any more. Your children growing up in the same house, they get one wife. That's it, period. That's the law, okay? But in these times, that was not so. So we can see that this girl was probably mistreated to begin with. And it's important here that it says that when her Lord opened the door in the morning, see, this is the proper perspective. This is what Sarah called Abraham, Baal, or my Lord, Baali, my Lord, which means husband in Hebrew, but it simply means my Lord, my master. And yet, if she will call him my Lord, then what that makes her is my lady. And if a man is respected as the head of his house and respected as a lord, as a master, then by all right, she will be treated as a lady, the lady of the house. And it's not just the lady of the house, no, she's treated like a lady. This is her castle as well. It's where the queen lives, because, ladies and gentlemen, in this life, the home, with the husband being the Lord and the wife being the lady, that's as close as royalty as we are ever going to get in this life, okay? And that's why each has to be treated with that same respect. This man did not treat his wife as a lady. He treated her with absolute disdain. She's dead. So, he saddled up his ass and he went back home. When he got there, in verse 29, it says that he took a knife and he laid hold on his concubine and he cut her up into 12 pieces. And then he took her body parts and sent them into all the coast of Israel, to the 12 tribes of Israel. And when that was done, all that saw the body parts and the proclamation that came with it, they said, we have never seen anything like this ever done in the land of Israel from the day that we came up out of the land of Egypt. Never has been such a deed has been done. Now, that's not just cutting the woman up. It is the sodomy that was going to be perpetrated upon that Levite and upon his servant. And what they did is that they raped his concubine to death. He said, this has never happened before. You need to consider this. And then you need to speak about this. And then you need to speak your mind. And so now, what happens out of this is war with the Benjamites. Judges chapter 20, verse 1, it says, then all of the children of Israel, they all went out of the congregation, and all the congregation was gathered together as one man from Dan to Beersheba with the land of Gilead, and they gathered together unto Yahovah in Mizpeh. And the chief of all the people, in verse 2, even all the tribes of Israel presented themselves in the assembly of the people, 400,000 footmen that drew sword. Whoa, we got nearly a 500,000 man army now that have come together. And they said, tell us about this wickedness. And the Levite, the husband of the woman, answered them and told them everything that took place. And then he said, I cut my concubine up in pieces, verse 6, sent her throughout all Israel, so that everyone will know what has happened, and now someone has got to take responsibility for this. In verse 10, it says that we will take 10 men out of 100 throughout all the tribes of Israel, and 100 out of 1,000, 10% is what they're looking at. I need you to get all the victuals together, all the food together, because we are going up to Gibeah in the area of Benjamin, and we are going to go to war against them. First of all, they're going to go up and they are going to ask them for these men who have done such a thing. Verse 13. Deliver us, the men, the children of Belial, which are in Gibeah, that we may put them to death and put away evil from Israel. But the children of Benjamin refused. They would not hearken unto the voice of their brethren. But Benjamin gathered themselves together out of the cities, all the cities of the Benjamites, to Gibeah, to do battle against Israel. They were going to protect these sex perverts. They were going to stand up for the rights of these sex perverts to rape and murder Israelites. To do a thing that the Torah says you put them to death for this. Do not let this sexual perversion of the Canaanites dwell among you. This will bring you down. It will bring your entire nation down. You destroy them. But now we've got these Benjamites who they want to protect them. So they gathered out of all the cities 26,000 men that drew sword beside the inhabitants of Gibeah, which were numbered 700 chosen men. So when you got 26,000 and only 700 in this one city, you can see all the cities. They all came out. And so there were 700 chosen men left-handed. Everyone could sling a stone at a hairbreadth and not miss. These were some bad warriors that are going to protect these sex perverts. So now, 400,000 on foot. These are the ones that are going to go to war against Benjamin. And so the children of Israel, it tells us, went up to the house of God and asked counsel. Now, first of all, this is in Shiloh. This is where the tabernacle is and the Ark of the Covenant. So they are there at Shiloh. They are south of Mount Ephraim, and now they're on their way down, and they know that it's war. But they first of all ask counsel. It says, which of us should go up first to battle against the children of Benjamin? And Yahweh said, Judah shall go up first. And the children of Israel rose up in the morning and camped against Gibeah. The men of Israel went out to do battle against Benjamin, and the men of Israel put themselves array in getting ready to fight against the men that have all gathered at Gibeah, 26,000. And then the gates opened up, and the children of Benjamin came out and destroyed down to the ground 22,000 men. Wait, there are only 26,000 of the tribe of Benjamin, and they killed 22,000 men. And who is it that they've gone up against? Judah, out of whom will come the king line. Out of Judah will come the deliverer. And they are whittling down by 22,000 men. They've taken them down. And the people, the men of Israel, encouraged themselves. They set their battle in array in this and put themselves all in place just like they did the first day. And then they went up and they wept all day, all evening because of this slaughter. And they asked counsel again. They prayed, shall I go up to battle again against the children of Benjamin, my brother? Now he adds in my brother. It's my brother. Okay, did I do something wrong? He's my brother. What? You said to get rid of this sin out of the land. They refused to do it. They fight against us. What shall we do? Yahweh said, go up against them. So Israel came up against Benjamin the second day. And again, Benjamin comes out of Gibeah and destroyed down to the ground 18,000 more men. Oh my, 18,000 more. And so then Israel backed away. They went all the way back up to Shiloh, went up to the house of God, and there they wept. And they sat before Yahovah all day. They fasted the whole day until evening. They offered burnt offerings. They offered peace offerings like they had before. They do not understand 22,000. Another 18,000 are dead, and they've made no headway. They've changed nothing. This nation is paying such a price. And they again inquired of Yahovah. And your King James in parentheses says right here that, and the Ark of the Covenant was there in those days. So, you know, they are really there. They are in the presence of the Almighty. The Ark is there. It's emphasizing it again. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a shadow picture. When evil is allowed to live and survive in the land, when sexual perversion is given free rein and is ordained so that they can get married, then we are going to see destruction on every hand. The Almighty has told us this. His ark was there. They prayed, they fasted over and over. The Almighty says, go up and fight against them, and nothing but death and bloodshed on the innocent results. And so Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, he cried out, shall I again go out to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother, or shall I cease? And Yahovah said plainly, go up, tomorrow I will deliver them into your hand. Why did he not say this before? Why did he not give them victory before? Because when there is evil that's allowed to promulgate in the land, when you have people who will protect them, then the death, the bloodshed, the mayhem, as this civilization goes down, is going to cost the entire nation. And so now, Israel set an ambush now. In King James, it calls them liars in wait. They lie in wait. It's an ambush round about Gibeah. And so they went up against Benjamin on the third day. They put themselves in array against Gibeah, just as they had done the other times. They're all right at there making the attack at the weak point, which is the front gate, not the walls all the way around. But now, when the children of Israel went out against the people, they were drawn away from the city. And they began the retreat, and they saw this was just like it happened other times. They began to kill some of the people, and they started to retreat a little bit, going back down the highway. You know, the one that goes to the house of God, the one that goes up to Shiloh. And then as they are retreating, and now you've got the 26,000 men who are all on the attack as Israel retreats. And just as that happens, then all of the ambush men then came around and then entered into the city and then torched the city. Before the 26,000 understood what was going on, they looked back and saw the city on fire. They knew that their city had been taken. And now you've got all of the ones who did the ambush, the tens of thousands doing the ambush, are back in the city, and now here they are all the way up on the highway on the way back, on the way to Shiloh. And so they turn back and see their city's been taken, so they start going the other way. And so now the rest of the army then closes in, and then they all take them out. And all that is left, ladies and gentlemen, are 600 men. They go in and they wipe out the cities. They wipe out the cities of the Benjamites. They kill all the women. They kill all of the men. There's nothing left for them. And there's 600 left, 600 men left of all of the tribe of Benjamin. And so they hole up at a rock. I'm going to find where we are. I've lost my place here. Go to chapter 21 and verse 1. Now the men of Israel had sworn when they were in Mizpeh, and Mizpeh is where they all gathered together, right there. It's 21, verse 1. And they swore to Yahovah, and they said that we are not going to give any of us, we are not going to give our wives to any of them. We've killed all their women, but we are not going to give our daughters to be their wives. It's not going to happen. Then the people came to the house of God, and they lifted up their voices, and they wept sorely, and said, O Yahovah, the God of Israel, why is this come to pass in Israel, that there should be today one tribe lacking in Israel? And it came to pass on the next day, the people rose up and built an altar and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. They were torn up about this. They had lost more of their own people as far as the whole nation of Israel that came up against them than the 26,000 plus all the women, and they wouldn't take out the little girls, but anyone of marriageable age who had known a man, they were gone. There were no women left for these 600 men. And it looked like there was no one going to be left of all of Israel, of this tribe. So what are they going to do? They swore they wouldn't give their wives. And so what they did is they said, okay, was there any tribe that didn't come and fight with us, who did not jeopard their lives and did not swear this? And so what they did is, oh yeah, these people, they did not come and fight with us. They chickened out of the battle, and so they went up there, killed them, took their wives, and gave them away. And yet, they were still missing a few people, a few women, in order for each one of these Benjamites, these 600 men, to have a wife. And so, they came up with a plan. And this is where the book ends. They come up with a plan, and that is, at Shiloh, every year, the Feast of Tabernacles, the young virgins go out into the vineyard and they dance out there. And so what we're going to do is tell every man of the tribe of Dan that doesn't have a wife that he's to sneak into the vineyard, and when the girls come out to dance, then they are to grab a girl and take her back home to be his wife. And this is exactly what they did. And when their fathers and family came to them and said, you know, we've got to go to combat, we got to go to war, we got to get my daughter back, he said, no. Let it be. We're not going to do it. We have to do this in order for that tribe to survive. And so that is why the tribe of Benjamin continued to survive. Now in the land of Israel, every year, they have a reenactment of this, but it's actually turned into an orgy that takes place out there. Because why? It's still an unredeemed land. Still, things that are not right are still transpiring in the land of Israel. There are sex slaves in the land of Israel. I knew actually where the house was because it became news. You know, human trafficking, prostitution in the land of Israel. It's happening even today, ladies and gentlemen, but nothing compared to what we see happening in America. Nothing compared to what is going on here. And our nation's leaders are turning not only a blind eye, our nation's leaders are encouraging sexual perversion and telling people, our nation's leader telling people to go to another state, men getting married to men, women to women, men to sheep, women to dogs. I mean, you know, I don't know where it's going to stop because all these are forbidden in the scripture. But ladies and gentlemen, this is our time to teach the gospel of the kingdom, to teach the commandments, and to call people to a standard of righteousness that has been here all the time. None of these commandments have been nailed to the cross. The rules and regulations, the additional rules and regulations of Phariseeism, they've all been nailed to the cross, but nothing of the eternal word of Yahovah has been nailed to the cross. Yeshua endorsed it, he stood on it, and he is encouraging us to listen to him, obey him, because if we do and obey, we will, in the end, be rewarded for our steadfastness. May Yahovah have mercy on America. Yivarechecha Yahovah vayishmerecha. Yair Yahovah panav elecha v'chanecha. Yisa Yahovah panav elecha v'yisem lecha shalom b'shem Yeshua HaMashiach Sar Shalom. Yahovah bless you and keep you. Yahovah make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahovah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. In the name of Yeshua, the Prince of Peace. Shabbat Shalom. Stand strong in Messiah. Obey the word, and I will see you when the smoke clears.